Pierre Rehov, a French-Israeli filmmaker and novelist, whose latest documentary, Suicide Killing, Proliferation, The Path to Darkness, was having its world premiere at the International Institute for Counterterrorism's 12th World Summit last September at the IDC in Herzliya, Israel. I knew that I wanted to interview him for the Unity Coalition for Israel's website. Pierre graciously agreed to be interviewed. The following video is the result of that meeting in Herzliya. Pierre, your documentaries have opened many eyes to many of the causes and dangers of Islamic terrorism. What moved you to become involved in this subject?
It's an old story. Actually, in 2000, just at the very beginning of the second Intifada, I came back from vacation, and I don't often watch French television, but for some reason this evening I watched French television, and there was the famous cases of Mohammed al-Dura supposedly having been killed by Israeli soldiers. For some reason it struck me, and in those days I was running a pretty big group of magazines, and I was also trained as a filmmaker and a journalist, and I just wanted to get involved, because having to listen to French media every day who were talking about Israeli soldiers as monsters and murderers, and having to watch those images on French television again and again and again was really hurting me in my Jewish sensitivity. So I said, I know some things, I can do some things, maybe I can do something. And I became involved, which means I just jumped in the plane, went to Israel, tried to meet some people, and started interviewing people here and there, and trying to put a film together. 6 months later, I had a film in my hands, which was the first one of a long serial of films, and this one was called Israel and the War of Images, and I was already trying to show and rebuke all of the propaganda built by the Palestinian Authority. That's how I started.
Thank you. And in your previous documentary, Suicide Killer, you entered into the mind of the Palestinian suicide killer. Unfortunately. What, in your opinion, made these terrorists embrace the cult of death?
It's a neurosis at the level of a civilization which has been organized, and which is a result of the fact that religion and civil life are one in the Muslim world. In other words, there is no separation between the religious rules and the civilian rules. Therefore, you give in Islam the power to people who actually are fanatics and have one goal, because Islam cannot exist unless they prevail, unless they invade the rest of the world. It's the first rule and the first principle of Islam is that every single human being, by the end of the days, will become a Muslim. But to see countries like Israel and the United States of America and the rest of the world in general, which are so successful inventing, discovering, people have a good life, women are equal to men, it's so much against the principles of Islam that it's not acceptable for them. Therefore, lately, there has been a lot of new theories saying that Islam is no longer pure, and that's the reason why the other civilizations are successful and they are not. So, as a result, you have theologians of Islam like the Wahhabists who decided and are trying to prove that the only way for Islam to succeed is to go back to the times of Muhammad. Times of Muhammad means that the women have no freedom at all, that all of the modern inventions don't exist anymore. It's basically what the Taliban were trying to do, and it's basically what Bin Laden was trying to do. And at the end of the day, this is leading people to a desperate state of mind. Because today, it's absolutely impossible to live like in the Middle Ages. But in order to keep going on, they need brainwashed people, and in order to brainwash them, they have to maintain them in a high level of frustration. So it's an organized frustration at the level of a society. And this frustration leads individuals to hate themselves. They lead individuals to hate flesh, to to hate everything which is material. The only thing which is pure according to them is Islam, is the soul, is the afterlife.
أنا بدي أنزل شهيد من شان الله والوطن والله بعطيني حسنات وبدخلني الجنة.
Basically, having organized a society where everything is repressive, everything is forbidden, leads people at the individual level to live in permanent anxiety. When you are living in anxiety, and especially you're surrounded with violence, and you have no hope for the future, because in the Muslim world, if you don't have money, you cannot have a wife. If you don't have a wife, you cannot have sex. So what about the libido of those individuals who cannot have anything they want? The only result is for them to hate the flesh and to dream of an afterlife where everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be possible, they're going to be surrounded with 72 virgins. The only thing they have to do is just to kill a few Jews or a few Americans, because those are the enemies. So you're dealing with a society, a civilization, where there is absolutely no possibility of hope until and unless they have enlightenments, like the Christians have had their enlightenments in the 17th century. It's not going to happen soon, and we're going to have another century to wait for them to awake.
Thank you. And then another thing, the new film that you're showing today, Suicide Killings, Proliferation, The Path to Darkness, you have exposed the process of religious brainwashing. Could you share some of your experiences with making this film and some of the insights you gained doing the documentary?
Sure. Well, first of all, this film is kind of a sequel to Suicide Killers, which is my most famous film, and which, as you know, was considered for an Oscar in 2007. But I could not stop after that, because when you've been spending days and weeks with suicide terrorists, whether it's in Israeli jails or actually on the field, and their families, you open a door to a lot of knowledge, which is a very weird knowledge. And it's not an obsession, of course, but when you start learning about something, you want to go to the end. So I knew a lot of things about the process of becoming a suicide bomber, but I had not gone to the very end of it with my first film. So I had to move on and do something else. Although dealing only with Palestinian terrorists is not enough, because suicide killing doesn't happen only under Islam. It was also happening in the United States of America, like in Virginia Tech, in Columbine. The kids were doing the same things that suicide bombers do around the world in the name of Islam, but they were doing it for personal purposes. So I wanted to see what was the difference between the mind of, let's say, Shaw, who killed 33 people in Virginia Tech, and the average suicide bomber who lives in Palestine, in Palestinian territories. So this is why I wanted to go deeper. And then I thought, what about kamikaze from World War II? So we went ahead and interviewed also kamikaze from World War II, see what they had in their mind and how they were approaching the phenomenon of suicide killers and especially suicide terrorists. I will let you discover what they had to say, because they were not very happy that a terrorist would be called kamikaze.
That's right, they certainly won't. Pierre, thank you for speaking with me. I am so looking forward to viewing your latest documentary, Suicide Killing, Proliferation, The Path to Darkness. Thank you. We will also be featuring this interview with Pierre Rehov on our other website, democracyunderattack.org.